Some houses are built to protect what's inside. They hold dreams in tight rooms. They keep fear behind closed doors. They make small lives feel safe. But pressure doesn't ask permission. It presses, it waits, and eventually it breaks something open. National isn't just bigger ice, it's bigger truth. Some men come chasing medals, some come chasing second chances, and some don't realize this is the moment their world is about to widen forever. Because when the house breaks open, nothing fits the same again. Tonight, everything changes. This is Clean Takeout, Chapter 8, When the House Breaks Open. The arena feels different the moment they stepped inside. Sudbury isn't announced first. They're the lower seat, the underdog line at the edge of the screen. Evan nudges Jonah lightly with his elbow. "Big stage," he mutters. Jonah rolls his shoulder once. Nate kneels at the hack and exhales once through his nose. "All right," he says quietly. "Let's make them notice." The first hand settles nerves. Short draws, clean guards, feeling weight. The crowd is polite at first. Curious applauses. National spectators don't invest until you give them something worth clapping for. Midway through the second end, they do. Jonah steps into the hack. Eyes locked down sheet. The call is tight. A takeout that needs to stick. Miss it, and they give up too. The stone rides straight, then curls late. Commentators lean forward. That's the shot. By the fourth end, Sudbury aren't surviving. They're dictating. A camera lingers longer than usual after Nate calls a freeze that lands perfect against the button. They're no longer background noise. They're a story forming in real time. And for the first time all season, it doesn't feel like they're chasing the game. It feels like game is finally chasing them. The other team starts glancing at the scoreboard between shots. Pressure creeping in. Nate feels it shift. This is the moment where teams either crumble or rise. He steps forward calmly. They're the ones chasing now. Jonah nods once, and then throws the shot of the match. The stone threads through the gap, kisses the guard, and curls into perfect cover. A commenter laughs in disbelief. You don't see underdogs throw that shot under this pressure. By the final end, the other team shakes early. Hands meet in the center of the sheet. As they head to the bench, Evan lets out a breathless laugh. Are we actually doing this? Cal claps his gloves together once, satisfied. Jonah's eyes are bright. Nate finally allows a small smile. Around the ring, people are already pointing. What started as curiosity is turning into buzz. Sudbury's becoming the story of the day. Morning games bleed into afternoon ends. Afternoon crowds turn into evening lights. 8 games in 4 days. Bodies sore, hands taped. Voices hoarse from calling weight through cold air. Sudbury plays everything. They lose 1 tight game to a veteran powerhouse. 6 wins, 2 losses. Enough to climb. Enough to shock people. Final standing flash on the big screen. Sudbury, second seed. A murmur ripples around the arena. Commentators stop calling them underdogs. Opponents watch their sheet closely now. Sudbury hits the qualifier against a top-ranked team and loses by a tiny fraction. 1 more game waits against another seeded squad. They lose again. Both matches are brutal and tight, decided by inches. Their nationals end there, not with a collapse, but with a real fight. Hands meet in the center of the sheet. Cal's eyes shine with something close to pride. Jonah wipes his face with the towel, chest still heaving. Nate looks around the crowd, still watching them walk off. The locker room door doesn't close. It keeps opening. Tournament volunteers, media badges, local reporters who didn't even know Sudbury existed 4 days ago. Now they do. Flashes hit tile walls. Microphones hover too close. Jonah answers cleanly. Then his agent arrives. "There he is," he says, clapping Jonah once on the shoulder. "Told you they'd catch up." He talks as if the story belongs to him. The agent turns, finally acknowledging the team. "Good work out there. Helped him showcase well." Cal's jaw tightens, almost invisible. Evan blinks like he's not sure he heard it right. Nate doesn't say anything. The spotlight isn't warm anymore. It's directional, and it's narrowing. Reporters drift out in clusters. Voices fade into the hallway. Jonah stands near the far bench, towel around his shoulders, listening while his agent talks. You handled the camera well, the agent says. That's part of the job now. I'm already lining up interviews next week. He claps Jonah's shoulder again. Proud of you, kid. Then just like that, he's gone, moving toward the next opportunity waiting in the hall. Nate exhales slowly. That wasn't a conversation about the future. That was a man managing something he already owned. Before the weight of it can settle fully, the door swings open. Dad! Cal turns just in time before his sons run to him, arms wrapping tight around his waist. There's my guy. You were everywhere, his son says. Cal drops into a crouch. You saw the game? Yeah. I'm sorry, buddy, I lost 2 games, Cal adds gently. The boy frowns. No, he says firmly. You're still my champion. Something tight loosens in Cal's chest. He laughs, pulling his son into a hug. Nate watches them go. Steam rises from real food instead of paper trays. Cal's daughter swings her legs beneath the chair, barely able to sit still. I want to play curling, she says suddenly between bites. Evan laughs. You should. The tension loosens, but talk drifts back. Jonah exhales slowly. Both games were right there. Nate nods. No one said we even make qualifiers, Evan says quietly. Cal sets his glass down. I have something to announce. I've got an offer for a coaching position out west. Evan looks up fast. Wait, what? Nate reaches for Evan's shoulder. Evan swallows once, then nods. Cal's boy kicks his legs happily. Can I be on the team too? They all laugh. Give it a few years, Jonah says. The table fills with warmth again. Laughter rises. Plate slides closer. Someone orders dessert they don't need. They spill out of the restaurant. Worms follow them for a second before the night air closes in. Cal's kids run ahead few steps. He and his wife follow close behind them. Evan stretches his arms. Man, he says, exhaling. I forgot what real food tastes like. Jonah chuckles softly. Then lightly, he pinches Nate's side through his jacket. Let's walk, he murmurs. But Evan notices. I heard there's a place 2 blocks that makes really good cocktails, he says casually. You two should check it out. Jonah raises an eyebrow. Thanks, man. Evan waves them off, already turning back toward Kyle. Jonah and Nate drift out of the group. The night feels bigger now. Evan's a good kid. Nate smiles. Yeah. They walk side by side. Streetlights spill gold across wet pavement. Their reflections stretch long and thin in the glass of closed shops. A couple passing them glances twice. A man slows. That's them, he murmurs to the woman beside him. Jonah hears it. So does Nate. They keep walking. Jonah drifts a little closer, shoulder nearly brushing now. They move in sync without meaning to. The world is noticing them now. But what matters most is that they found their way back to each other in it. They slow as the glow of the cocktail bar comes into view. Warm light spills through tall windows. Jonah stops near the door. Nate does too. Through the glass, a couple clinks drinks. Someone throws their head back laughing. It looks easy in there. Normal. Jonah watches it for a beat, then looks at Nate. Nate's already looking at him. Jonah opens his mouth. Nate does at the same time. Should we just go back? The words overlap. Nate's smile spread fast. Jonah grabs Nate's hand suddenly. Come on. And they run. Laughter breaking out between them without meaning to. They dodge around a couple on the sidewalk, nearly bump shoulders with someone stepping out of a shop. Sorry, Jonah calls back. They don't slow until the hotel comes into view. Both breathless now, smiling like kids. They walk the rest of the way slower, hands still linked. The world feels far behind them now, and whatever they did and say no longer feels heavy. When the room door clicks shut behind them, the world collapsed to the size of this space. No more nationals, no more future looming, just them. Jonah grabs the front of Nate's jacket with both hands and pulls him in hard. Their mouths crash together before either can speak. Nate makes a low sound against Jonah's lips. His hand slides under Jonah's coat, shoving it off his shoulder in one motion. The fabric hits the floor somewhere behind them. Shoes are kicked off mid-step. Jackets shed like they're burning. Jonah's shirt follows, yanked over his head. Been waiting this all night. They move together fast. Two men who've spent too long being careful finally letting go. Jonah's arm comes around Nate's back, holding tight. Nate presses his face into a curve of Jonah's shoulder. Outside, the city keeps moving. Inside, time stretches soft and safe. Few days later, the couch sits crooked, pulled away from the wall. A lamp rests unplugged beside it. The coffee table is cleared of everything except a single mug left from the night. Cardboard boxes are stacked near the door. Nate stands in the middle of the living room for a moment, hands on his hips, taking it all in. Jonah lifts each book. A curling manual, old notebooks, few novels. You read? Nate asks. Jonah smiles faintly. What, you think it's for decoration? They move to the kitchen next. Cabinets open, glass clink. Jonah wraps mugs and dish towels with more care than necessary. This one's from my mom, Jonah says, holding up a chipped blue mug. Nate nods. They drift back into the living room. Another box fills. Another seals shut. Time stretches. The house slowly sheds Jonah's piece by piece. Nate noticed the things disappearing before he noticed the box filling. The space where Jonah's shoes usually sit. The empty hook by the door. The bare coffee table. Nate pauses near the window watching a car pass. There's still so much to learn about you. Jonah steps in behind him. Arms slide around Nate's waist. We can learn, Jonah murmurs into his back. Nate exhales slowly, resting his hands over Jonah's arm. They stay like that, surrounded by half-packed life. The rink bar is louder than it usually is. Nate and Jonah arrives together, shoulders brushing as they step inside. Cal is already there near the counter, talking with a couple of old league friends. Cal joins them and orders a round. Laughter rises and falls like waves. For a while, it almost feels normal. Then the door opens behind them. Cold air rushes in. Evan steps inside, rubbing his hands together, eyes scanning the room. Before he even reaches the table, his gaze catches on someone behind the bar. The waiter looks up. Their eyes meet. Both freeze for half a second. Evan blinks. No way, he mutters. They stand there awkwardly for a beat. Nate and Jonah watches them from the table, confused. Cal turns slightly, eyebrows raised. You know him? Jonah whispers. Evan rubs the back of his neck. Yeah, this is Mason, the waiter says easily. Nice seeing our heroes. You're the talk of the town. And he turns to Evan. Congrats, curling star. It's nice to meet you again. Evan groans. Please don't call me that. Mason laughs. The tension softens instantly. Drinks? Mason asks. Yes, Evan says too fast, then clears his throat. Yeah, that'd be great. Mason heads back to the bar, glancing once over his shoulder with a small smile. Evan watches him go. Jonah smirks. Bro, you need to talk before I leave. Evan drops into his chair. Grinder mistake. Nate bursts out laughing. Cal's confused. The night rolls on. More drinks, more stories. The laughter comes easily now. Evan keeps stealing glances toward the bar. Mason keeps catching them. When they call the night, Mason approaches even quietly. Maybe I'll see you around? Evan nods. Yeah. Jonah nudges him. Told you. National changes everything. They laugh. Jonah takes Nate's hand. I'm gonna miss this place. They start walking. The rink bar glows warm behind them. One chapter closing, another already opening. Jonah's place doesn't look like his anymore. The walls are bare, the shelves empty. Even the echo sounds unfamiliar. He hasn't slept here for the last 2 nights. He's been at Nate's. Now they stand inside it one last time. The keys rest on the kitchen counter. Jonah turns them over once in his hand. A knock at the door breaks silence. Cal steps in first. Evan follows close behind. Jonah swallows, then pulls Cal into a tight tug. Evan steps up next. He hesitates for half a second, then wraps his arms around Jonah. Don't forget us when you're famous. Jonah hops a quiet laugh into his shoulder. You call me whenever you have questions, okay? Evan squeezes tighter. I will. Nate stays back watching. Not ready yet. Cal glances at him. You driving him? Nate nods. Yeah. Cal claps Nate once on the shoulder as he passes. Evan lingers a moment longer, then steps closer to Nate. You good? He asks quietly. Nate nods. Evan studies him. Doesn't fully believe it, but let it go. Jonah looks around the empty place one last time. They all step outside together. The sky is pale. The airport waits. The drive is quiet. Street lights pass in long, steady lines across the windshield. Nate keeps both hands on the wheel. The airport lights appear ahead, glowing white against the dark. Jonah swallows. Already. Nate parks and cuts the engine. The quiet feels louder now. Inside the terminal, they walk side by side, shoulders brushing. Jonah grips the strap of his bag tighter. They stop near the security line, the line where moments change. Jonah turns toward Nate. They look at each other. I guess this is it, Jonah says softly. Nate nods. Jonah pulls him into a hug and rests his forehead against Nate's shoulder. You going to miss me? Jonah whispers. Nate breathes out slowly. Of course. They pull back slightly. Promise you'll come visit? I will. Jonah shifts his weight. He steps back, takes 2 slow steps toward the line. Then he turns back, crosses the space between them in 3 quick strides, grabs Nate into a fierce hug. I love you, man, Jonah blurts. The words come out like they've been waiting all season. Nate freezes for half a second. Then everything in him melts. He wraps Jonah tight. I love you too. The world fades. People pass. Announcements echo. But for a moment, there's only them. Jonah pulls back just enough to look at him, eyes shining. Nate smiles. And they kiss. Finally, Jonah turns. See you soon. This time, he keeps walking. Nate watches until Jonah disappears into the crowd. Months has passed quietly. New drills, new faces, new expectations. The rink feels different now. Busier. Evan has stepped into the vice role. 2 new players have joined the rooster. Ben, tall and sharp-eyed, quick on the ice. Zach, broader shoulders, steady hands, focused. They move well together already. Then the door swings open. Cold air rushes in. Jonah steps inside. Bag slung over one shoulder. Nate freezes. What? Jonah drops the bag, crosses the ice in long strides, jumps straight into Nate's arm. Nate barely catches him. Laughter bursts out of both of them. You said tomorrow. Nate laughs. Jonah grins. I couldn't wait. Jonah's hands slide naturally to Nate's waist. Evan groans dramatically. Oh my God, get a room. Nate laughs, still holding Jonah. Hey guys, this is Jonah. Ben grins. Nice to finally meet the legend. Zach nods respectfully. Evan steps closer. Jonah laughs and pulls Evan into a quick hug. Then Evan does something unexpected. He waves toward the stands. Hey! Mason stands. He walks down the steps slowly, hands in his jockey pocket, smiling. Jonah blinks. Mason reaches the board. Evan hops up, leaning in as their hands find each other naturally. Jonah's mouth falls open. No way. Evan grins. Way. Jonah laughs again. It's about time. Mason chuckles beside them. Nate is watching all of it, warmth spreading through his chest. Then he remembers something. Hold up, guys. He pulls his phone out, dials. It rings twice. Then Cal's face fills the screen. Look who's here, Nate says, turning the camera. Jonah waves. Cal's eyes widen. Damn, it's good to see you. All of them gather around the phone. Ben and Zach leans in curiously. Evan squeezes into frame with Mason. For a moment, it feels like the whole team again. When Nate finally pockets the phone, Jonah slips his finger into Nate's. Feels good being back, Jonah says quietly. Nate smiles. Around them the rink hums with life, and the future wide open. The ice reset every morning. Lines are scraped clean. Pebbles smooth flat. Every trace of yesterday's battle erased. But people don't. Sudbury didn't leave nationals with medals. They left with belief, with proof that control can grow into connection. The friction can become family. Some goodbyes open doors. Some endings build beginnings. And some moments that felt like breaking were really the house making room for more life. This was Clean Takeout, Chapter 8, When the House Breaks Open. Thank you for being part of Clean Takeout. This series was never just about curling. It was about ambition, love, and the courage to grow beyond what feels safe. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more stories on gay audiobooks.